The dust storm hit Frontier Station Helios just after sunset. Taeyang wiped the grease from his hands and watched through the workshop window as orange clouds swallowed the landing platforms. The wind howled against the metal walls, making the whole station groan like an old ship. "Another bad one," his boss muttered, counting the day's earnings. "Get home before it gets worse." Taeyang nodded and grabbed his jacket. The walk to his apartment block usually took 15 minutes, but tonight he had to lean into the wind with every step. Dust found its way into his mouth and eyes despite his respirator. He kept his head down and followed the guide lights embedded in the floor. He was halfway across the lower docking bay when he saw her. At first, he thought it was just debris blown against the wall. Then the debris moved. Taeyang stopped and stared. It was a person, curled up near one of the emergency airlocks. Even through the swirling dust, he could see she wasn't human. Her skin had a strange silvery shimmer that caught the emergency lights. Taeyang looked around. The docking bay was empty. Everyone with sense was already inside. He should keep walking. Getting involved with aliens on this station usually meant trouble. The colony officials didn't like complications, and helping the wrong person could cost him his job. But she wasn't moving much. She might be dying. Taeyang cursed under his breath and jogged over to her. Up close, he could see she was badly hurt. Her clothes were burned and torn, and dark blue blood stained her shoulder. Her face was elegant, with features that reminded him of old paintings from Earth, but definitely not human. She was breathing, at least. "Hey," he said, touching her arm gently. "Can you hear me?" Her eyes opened slowly. They were completely silver, with no visible pupil. She tried to say something, but the words were in a language he didn't understand. Her hand grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. Okay, Taeyang said. "I'm going to help you. Can you walk?" He pulled her arm over his shoulder and lifted. She was lighter than he expected. Together, they stumbled toward the residential section. The storm raged around them, and twice he nearly lost his footing. The woman's head lolled against his shoulder, and she mumbled words he couldn't understand. His apartment was on the 3rd level of Block 7, the cheapest housing on the station. The corridors were narrow and stained, and his neighbors minded their own business. That was good right now. He keyed open his door and half-carried the woman inside. The apartment was small. One room served as bedroom, kitchen, and living space. A tiny bathroom was behind a sliding door. Taeyang laid the woman on his couch, the only furniture besides his bed and a small table. She groaned as he positioned her head on a cushion. "Hold on," he said, digging through his closet for the medical kit. Every station worker was required to have one, though Taeyang had only used his for minor cuts and burns. He pulled out the cheap universal translator he bought years ago and clipped it to his collar. "Can you understand me now?" he asked. The woman's eyes focused on him. "Yes," she said weakly. The translator turned her words into Korean. "Where am I?" "Frontier Station Helios. You're in my apartment. What happened to you?" She closed her eyes. "My ship? There was an attack. I escaped in a pod. It crashed outside the station. I walked here. In this storm?" Taeyang shook his head. "You're lucky to be alive. Let me see that shoulder." She flinched when he touched the burned fabric, but she didn't pull away. Taeyang carefully cut away the ruined clothing around the wound. The injury was bad, a deep burn that had partially cauterized itself. He cleaned it as best he could with the supplies he had and wrapped it in synthetic bandages. "I'm not a doctor," he said, "but this should help until the storm passes. Then I can take you to the medical center." "No," she said quickly, grabbing his hand. "No doctors. No officials. Please." Taeyang studied her face. Fear showed clearly in those strange silver eyes. Are you in trouble? Yes. People are looking for me. If they find me... She trailed off. What did you do? Nothing wrong. But that doesn't matter to them. She tried to sit up and winced. I shouldn't involve you. I'll leave when the storm ends. You can barely move, Taeyang said. Look, I don't know what's going on, and maybe I don't want to know. But you need rest and food. The storm will last all night. You can stay here until morning, at least. She looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. Why would you help me? You don't know me. Taeyang shrugged. You needed help. That's enough. He stood and went to the small kitchen area. His food supplies were basic. Instant noodles, protein bars, and a few vegetables he bought at the market. He heated water and made 2 bowls of noodles, adding an egg to each. What's your name? He asked, bringing her a bowl. Hi, Yoon, she said softly. I'm Taeyang. Nice to meet you, even if the circumstances are strange. Yoon took the bowl with both hands. She stared at the simple meal like she'd never seen anything like it. Then she took a bite and closed her eyes. This is good. It's just cheap noodles, Taeyang said with a laugh. No, it's warm and you made it for me. That makes it good. They ate in silence. Outside, the storm continued to hammer the station. Taeyang's small window rattled in its frame. He glanced at Ha-Yoon and saw her watching him again with that intense, curious look. What kind of being are you? He asked. I don't recognize your species. I'm Vellani. We're from the core systems. Most humans wouldn't have met one of us out here. What brought you to the frontier? Ha-Yoon was quiet for a long moment. Business, she finally said. It doesn't matter now. My ship is destroyed and I'm stranded. Where were you going? Meridian Cross. It's 3 jumps from here. Taeyang whistled. That's a long way. Do you have anyone who can come get you? Eventually. But I need to stay hidden until I can contact them safely. The people hunting me will be monitoring all communications on this station. How long do you need? A few days. Maybe a week. She looked at him apologetically. I know this is asking too much. Taeyang looked around his tiny apartment. It would be cramped with 2 people, and dangerous if someone was really looking for her. His boss would fire him if he found out Taeyang was hiding someone. The station authorities might arrest him for not reporting an unregistered alien. But when he looked at Ha-Yoon, he saw someone alone and afraid and hurt. He saw someone who needed help. He thought about his mother back on Earth, who had always taught him to help those in need, even when it cost him something. Okay, he said. You can stay here, but you'll need to keep quiet and stay inside. This isn't the safest place, but at least it's shelter. Ha-Yoon's eyes widened. You would risk this for a stranger? I guess so, Taeyang said. Get some rest. You can have the couch. I'll take the floor. No, I can't. You're injured. Don't argue. He brought her a blanket and pillow, then made himself a bed on the floor with spare clothes and a thin mat. Ha-Yoon settled onto the couch, still watching him with that strange expression. Taeyang, she said quietly. Thank you. I won't forget this kindness. Don't worry about it. Just focus on healing. He turned off the lights, and the apartment fell into darkness except for the faint glow of the emergency lighting from outside. The storm continued its assault on the station, but inside, for now, there was warmth and safety. Taeyang stared at the ceiling and wondered what he'd gotten himself into. He had no idea that the woman sleeping on his couch would change his life forever. He had no idea that she was the most powerful person he would ever meet. Right now, she was just Ha-Yoon, someone who needed help. And for Taeyang, that was all that mattered. The next morning, Taeyang woke to the smell of something burning. He jumped up and found Ha-Yoon standing in his kitchen area, staring at his small cooking unit with confusion. Smoke drifted from a pan containing what might have once been eggs. "I tried to make breakfast," she said, looking embarrassed. "I think I broke your cooker." Taeyang laughed and showed her the temperature controls. "It's not broken, just set too high. Here, let me help." Together they made a simple breakfast. Ha-Yoon's shoulder looked better this morning, though she still moved carefully. The station's morning shift alarm echoed through the walls, and Taeyang checked the time. "I have to go to work," he said. "Will you be okay here alone?" "Yes, I'll stay quiet. There's water in the cooler and food in the storage unit. Don't answer if anyone knocks. I'll be back this evening." At the repair shop, Taeyang tried to focus on his work. He fixed a broken atmospheric processor and welded a cracked support beam. But his mind kept wandering to Ha-Yoon. He wondered who was hunting her and why. She seemed educated and well-mannered, not like a criminal. During his lunch break, he noticed something strange. 3 security drones were circling the residential blocks more than usual. And there were unfamiliar ships at the docking platforms, sleek and expensive looking. Station security didn't have ships like those. Taeyang felt a cold weight in his stomach. He finished his shift quickly and hurried home. Ha-Yoon was standing by the window when he entered, looking tense. "There are people searching the station," she said. "I saw them on your communication screen. They're asking about a Vellani woman. Mercenaries?" "Yes, very good ones." She turned to face him. "I should leave. I'm putting you in danger. Where would you go?" "You can barely walk across the room without wincing." "I'll manage." "No." Taeyang locked the door and closed the window shade. "We just need to be careful. This block has hundreds of apartments. They can't search them all without proper authorization, and the station officials won't give it to them without proof of a crime." Over the next 3 days, the mercenaries questioned workers and searched public areas. Taeyang went to work each day, acting normal, while Ha-Yoon hid in his apartment. In the evenings, they talked. Ha-Yoon told him about the wider galaxy, about the thousands of species and the ancient conflicts between them. Taeyang told her about Earth, about humanity's slow expansion into space. "Your people are very young by galactic standards," Ha-Yoon said one night. "Most species don't achieve space travel for millions of years after they develop consciousness. Humans did it in just a few thousand." "Or stubborn," Taeyang said with a grin. "When we want something, we don't give up. I've noticed." She smiled, a rare expression for her. "You fix everything with such simple tools. That processor you repaired today, I heard you talking about it. A Vellani engineer would have replaced the entire unit. But you just made it work with spare parts and creativity. New parts are expensive. We learned to make do. It's remarkable." On the 4th day, everything went wrong. Taeyang was walking home when he noticed 2 mercenaries waiting near his apartment block. They were questioning his neighbors. His heart raced, but he forced himself to stay calm. He took a different route, entering through the maintenance access on the lower level. He keyed open his apartment quietly. "Ha-Yoon, we need to leave. Now." She stood immediately, seeing the fear in his face. "They found us? They're searching this block. Get your things. I don't have anything." They moved into the corridor, but voices echoed from the stairwell. The mercenaries were coming up. Taeyang grabbed Ha-Yoon's hand and pulled her toward the service elevator at the end of the hall. The elevator was old and slow. They descended into the lower maintenance levels, areas most residents never saw. These tunnels ran beneath the entire station, filled with pipes and cables and machinery. "Where are we going?" Ha-Yoon whispered. "I'm not sure yet. Just away from them." But when the elevator doors opened, 2 more mercenaries were waiting. They were large beings, heavily armed, with cold eyes that showed no mercy. The Volani woman, one of them said. You will come with us. Taeyang stepped in front of Ha-Yun. She's not going anywhere. The mercenary laughed. Human, move aside. This doesn't concern you. I'm making it my concern. The mercenary raised his weapon, but Taeyang was already moving. He'd grown up in these maintenance levels during his training. He knew every pipe and every wire. He yanked hard on an emergency coolant valve, and purple plasma coolant sprayed across the corridor. It wasn't dangerous to touch, but it created thick clouds that filled the air. Run! Taeyang shouted. He and Ha-Yun sprinted into the smoke. The mercenaries fired weapons, but the shots went wide in the confusion. Taeyang led Ha-Yun through a maze of corridors, taking turns he'd memorized years ago. They emerged in a power distribution center. Massive cables ran along the walls, carrying energy to different parts of the station. Taeyang pulled open a control panel and started flipping switches. What are you doing? Ha-Yun asked. Making things difficult for them. He rerouted power, causing sections of the station to go dark. Emergency lights kicked on, bathing everything in red. Alarms started blaring. In the chaos, they moved deeper into the maintenance areas. But the mercenaries were persistent. They split up, cutting off escape routes. Taeyang and Ha-Yun found themselves trapped in a dead-end tunnel. Heavy footsteps approached from behind. No way out, Ha-Yun said, looking at the solid wall ahead. There's always a way. Taeyang examined the tunnel structure. These maintenance areas were built in sections, connected by seals that could be separated in emergencies. He found the control panel hidden behind a safety cover. When I do this, we'll have about 10 seconds before the tunnel collapses, he said. We need to be on the other side of that hatch. He pointed to a small maintenance hatch 20 feet back. That's too far. Then we run really fast. He activated the separation sequence and grabbed Ha-Yun's hand. They ran as the tunnel began to shake. Warning sirens screamed. Behind them, the mercenaries shouted in alarm. Taeyang and Ha-Yun dove through the maintenance hatch just as the tunnel section sealed itself, trapping the mercenaries on the other side. They lay on the floor, breathing hard. That was insane, Ha-Yun gasped. But it worked. They made their way through service crawl spaces and ventilation shafts. Ha-Yun's wound began bleeding again from the exertion, but she didn't complain. Finally, they reached the impound yard where the station kept damaged and abandoned vehicles. Can you fly a shuttle? Ha-Yun asked. I've never tried, but I can fix them. There was an old cargo shuttle in the corner, one that had been sitting there for months. The owner had abandoned it when the repair costs exceeded its value. Taeyang had always thought it was a waste. He broke the lock and climbed inside. The interior was dusty and cold. Ha-Yun followed, closing the hatch behind them. For a moment, they just sat in the darkness, listening for pursuit. They'll keep searching, Ha-Yun said quietly. We can't hide on this station forever. Taeyang looked at the shuttle's control panel. Then we don't hide. We leave. This thing doesn't fly. Not yet. He pulled out his tools and started examining the systems. The main power coupling was fried, and the navigation computer was corrupted. But the hull was solid, and the engines just needed new parts. Over the next 6 hours, while the station searched for them, Taeyang worked. He pulled parts from other abandoned shuttles in the yard. He rewired systems and bypassed damaged components. Ha-Yun helped where she could, following his instructions despite knowing nothing about human technology. How do you know what to do? She asked. I don't, not really. I'm just trying things and hoping they work. That seems very human. Finally, as the station's night cycle began, the shuttle hummed to life. The lights flickered on. The engines coughed and sputtered, but held steady. It won't be comfortable, Taeyang said. And it might fall apart at any moment. but it should get us away from here. Ha-Yun looked at him with something like wonder. You built a working spacecraft from garbage in 6 hours. I just fixed what was broken. No, you did something amazing. She touched his shoulder gently. Thank you, Tae-Yang. For everything? He smiled. Let's save the thanks for when we're safely away. Where did you say you needed to go? Meridian Cross. 3 jumps from here. Then hold on. I'd never piloted anything before, so this might be rough. Tae-Yang activated the launch sequence. The shuttle rose shakily from the impound yard and headed for the station's main exit. Behind them, alarms started blaring as security realized what was happening. But by then, they were already accelerating into open space. The stars stretched around them, and Frontier Station Helios became a small point of light behind them. Tae-Yang checked the navigation computer and set course for the first jump point. We made it, Ha-Yun said softly. For now. But something tells me this is just the beginning. He was right, though he had no idea just how much his life was about to change. The shuttle drifted through the darkness between stars. Tae-Yang watched the instruments carefully, making small adjustments to keep them on course. Every few hours, something would break, and he would have to fix it. The life support system needed constant attention, and the hyperdrive made concerning noises whenever they jumped. Ha-Yun sat in the co-pilot's seat, still amazed that the ancient shuttle was flying at all. How long until we reach Meridian Cross? She asked. About 5 days, if nothing major breaks. Tae-Yang tapped a gauge that had stopped working. Maybe 6. And if something major breaks, then we'll be stuck floating in space until our air runs out. He said it casually, like discussing the weather. Ha-Yun stared at him. That doesn't frighten you? Being frightened won't fix the problem. Better to focus on keeping things working. She shook her head slowly. You humans are strange. Any other species would be panicking right now. During the long hours of travel, they talked. Ha-Yun told him about the galaxy he'd only seen pieces of. She described the great Velani cities that floated in space, built from crystal and light. She explained the complicated politics between the old species and the young ones, the trading empires that controlled entire sectors, and the ancient wars that still shaped the present. Where does humanity fit in all of this? Tae-Yang asked. Honestly, most species barely notice you. Humans have only been in space for a few generations. To beings who live for thousands of years, you're just children playing with dangerous toys. That's a bit insulting. I'm sorry. I'm just being truthful. She paused. Though after meeting you, I'm starting to think the other species are wrong. There's something special about humans. You don't have our technology or our long experience, but you have something else. A kind of determination. You never give up. We can't afford to give up. The galaxy hasn't given us anything for free. Every colony, every ship, every small success has come from humans working themselves to exhaustion. We have to be stubborn just to survive. Ha-Yun was quiet for a long time. I think I understand now, she finally said. On the 3rd day, they picked up a distress signal. A freighter had been attacked by pirates and was drifting without power. The transmission was weak, but clear. People were trapped inside with failing life support. We should help them, Tae-Yang said, changing course. Wait. Ha-Yun grabbed his arm. The mercenaries might still be looking for us. If we stop, we're taking a huge risk. But people are dying. People die every day in space. We can't save everyone. Tae-Yang looked at her. Maybe not. But we can save these people. Right now. Today. It's not logical. It's not safe. I don't care. He continued changing course. I'm not leaving them to die when I can help. Ha-Yun watched him for a moment, then sighed. You're impossible. This is exactly the kind of thing that gets humans killed. Probably. They approached the damaged freighter carefully. It was a large vessel designed to carry cargo across long distances. Scorch marks covered the hull where weapons had hit it. 2 pirate ships still circled it, smaller and faster, firing occasionally at the disabled freighter. "They're keeping it from escaping," Hyun said, "waiting for the crew to surrender so they can board it and take everything of value. How do we stop them with no weapons?" "We don't. We run. This is suicide, Taeyang." But Taeyang was already studying the pirate ship's movement patterns. An idea was forming in his mind, crazy and dangerous. "Our tractor beam still works, right?" "Barely. It was designed for moving cargo containers, not combat. But it works." He flew the shuttle closer, trying to look like debris or another piece of wreckage. The pirates ignored them at first, focused on the freighter. When they were close enough, Taeyang activated the tractor beam and locked onto one of the pirate ships. "What are you doing?" Hyun shouted. "Creating a distraction." The tractor beam pulled at the pirate ship, throwing it off course. The pirates immediately turned their attention to the shuttle. Taeyang released the beam and accelerated hard, leading them away from the freighter. "Now they're chasing us instead," Hyun said. "Exactly. The freighter can escape while we keep them busy. And then they'll kill us." "Maybe, but I'm betting our shuttle is smaller and faster in tight spaces." They dove toward a nearby asteroid field. The pirate ships followed, firing weapons that lit up space behind them. Taeyang flew between asteroids, using his experience from the station's maintenance tunnels to navigate the narrow gaps. The shuttle shook with each near miss, but he kept going. One of the pirate ships tried to follow too close and clipped an asteroid. It spun out of control, crashing into another rock. The second ship was more careful, but Taeyang's desperate flying kept it from getting a clear shot. Hyun watched the sensors. "The freighter is moving." They got their engines working. "Good. Now we just have to survive." The remaining pirate ship was closing in. Taeyang pushed the shuttle harder, weaving through the asteroids. Then he saw it, a gap barely wider than their shuttle between 2 massive rocks. He aimed straight for it. "That's too narrow," Hyun yelled. "Hold on." The shuttle scraped through the gap, metal screeching against stone. They emerged on the other side with new dents and scratches, but intact. The pirate ship tried to follow but was too large. It had to go around, giving Taeyang precious seconds to escape. They jumped to hyperspace, just as the pirate got close enough to fire again. The stars stretched and blurred, and they left the danger behind. Taeyang slumped in his seat, breathing hard. "That was closer than I wanted." Hyun was staring at him with an expression he couldn't read. "You risked our lives for complete strangers." "Yes. Why?" "Because it was the right thing to do." "The right thing?" She laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "Taeyang, in my experience, most beings in this galaxy only do what benefits them. They help others when there's profit or advantage. But you just help. No questions, no expectation of reward. You helped me, a stranger who brought danger to your door. You helped that freighter, even though it endangered our escape." "Why?" Taeyang thought about it. "I guess because I'd want someone to help me if I was in trouble. My mother used to say that kindness isn't about what you get back. It's about making the galaxy a little less dark, one small action at a time." Your mother sounds wise. She was. She died when I was young, but I still remember her lessons. Hyun was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was soft. "I've lived for a long time, Taeyang. I've seen thousands of worlds and met millions of beings. But I've never met anyone quite like you. I'm just a mechanic." "No, you're much more than that. You just don't see it yet." The next 2 days passed more quietly. They jumped twice more, getting closer to Meridian Cross. The shuttle continued to break down in small ways, and Taeyang continued to fix it. Ha-Yun helped when she could, learning about human technology with quick intelligence. "You're good at this," Taeyang said as she helped him rewire a power coupling. "I'm just following your instructions. Still, you learn fast." She smiled. "I have a good teacher." On the 5th day, they received a transmission from the freighter they'd saved. The captain was a gruff alien named Biora, who sounded both grateful and confused. "Human ship, this is Captain Biora of the freighter Lucky Stars. We tracked your trajectory to thank you. You saved my crew's lives. Why did you help us?" Taeyang activated the communication system. "Because you needed help, Captain." There was a long pause. "That's it? No payment expected? No favor owed?" "That's it." Another pause. "I've been shipping cargo for 40 years, and I've never heard of anyone doing something like this. You're either the bravest or the craziest human I've met." "Probably a bit of both," Taeyang admitted. "Well, crazy or not, you have my thanks. And my respect. If you ever need anything, you contact Lucky Stars. Meyer remembers his debts." The transmission ended. Ha-Yun was looking at Taeyang again with that intense gaze. "What?" he asked. "That captain will tell others about what you did. Word spreads fast in space. People will hear about the human who risked his life to save strangers. So you're changing how people think about humans. One action at a time, just like your mother said." Taeyang hadn't thought about it that way. He'd just been doing what felt right. On the 6th day, Meridian Cross appeared on their sensors. It was enormous, a space station larger than any city Taeyang had seen. Thousands of ships surrounded it, from tiny shuttles to massive cargo haulers. Lights covered its surface like stars. "We made it," he said, relief flooding through him. Ha-Yun nodded, but she looked nervous. "Yes, and now everything changes." "What do you mean?" "You'll see soon enough." She placed her hand over his. "Thank you, Taeyang, for everything. For saving my life, for protecting me, for showing me what true kindness looks like. I won't forget it." "You sound like you're saying goodbye." "Not goodbye. But things will be different once we dock. Just remember that I'm grateful, no matter what happens next." Taeyang didn't understand, but he nodded. He guided the battered shuttle toward the massive station, unaware that his simple act of kindness was about to change his life forever. The moment their damaged shuttle entered Meridian Cross's docking bay, Taeyang knew something was wrong. The bay they were directed to wasn't the standard area for small vessels. It was a private platform, surrounded by security barriers and expensive-looking ships. "Yoon, I think there's been a mistake," he said, checking the coordinates again. "There's no mistake." Her voice was quiet. Before Taeyang could ask what she meant, the shuttle settled onto the platform with a loud clang. Through the viewport, he saw dozens of people waiting. They wore expensive clothes and held themselves with the confidence of the powerful. Behind them stood security personnel in matching uniforms. "Who are all these people?" Taeyang asked. Ha-Yun didn't answer. She stood and smoothed her torn, dirty clothing. Despite everything they'd been through, she suddenly carried herself differently. Taller, more confident. Like a completely different person. The shuttle's hatch opened, and warm air rushed in. Ha-Yun stepped out first, and immediately everyone in the docking bay bowed deeply. Taeyang followed slowly, feeling completely out of place. His work clothes were stained with grease and sweat. He hadn't showered in days. And everyone was bowing. Not to him, obviously. To Ha-Yun. An elderly Vellani man approached, his silver skin marked with age lines. "Chairwoman Park, we've been searching for you for weeks. When your ship was destroyed, we feared the worst. Chairwoman? Taeyang's mind went blank. I'm fine, Director Quan, Ha-Yun said calmly. Thanks to this human, I survived. Director Quan looked at Taeyang for the first time, his expression polite but dismissive. I see. Well, we're grateful for his assistance. We'll make sure he's compensated appropriately. More people approached, all wanting to speak with Ha-Yun. They surrounded her, asking questions about the attack, her injuries, and various business matters that Taeyang didn't understand. He stood there awkwardly, feeling invisible despite being in the middle of everything. A young woman approached him. She wore a sharp business suit and carried a datapad. You're the human who helped Chairwoman Park? Yes, her name is Ha-Yun. The woman smiled slightly. Chairwoman Park Ha-Yun, yes. I'm her assistant, Min-Seo. Could you come with me? We need to verify some information. Wait, what's going on? Who is Ha-Yun? Min-Seo looked surprised. You don't know? She's the chairwoman of the Celestial Consortium. She's one of the most powerful people in the galaxy. The words didn't make sense. Taeyang watched Ha-Yun talking with the directors and officials. This was the same woman who had slept on his couch, who had burned eggs in his kitchen, who had looked at instant noodles like they were the best meal she'd ever eaten. There must be a mistake, he said. No mistake. Come, we have a medical team standing by. You both need to be examined. The next few hours passed in a blur. Doctors treated his minor injuries and the cuts he'd gotten during their escape. They gave him clean clothes and showed him to a private room in the station's luxury section. The room was bigger than his entire apartment, with a real bed and a bathroom that had actual running water, not just recycling systems. Taeyang showered, scrubbing away days of grime. He stood under the hot water and tried to process everything. Ha-Yun was rich. Not just wealthy, but powerful beyond anything he'd imagined. And he'd been treating her like a normal person this whole time. He felt stupid. Of course, she had been hiding something. Her education, her manner of speaking, the way she talked about the galaxy like someone who'd seen all of it. He should have realized. There was a knock on the door. Taeyang, dressed in the clean clothes they'd provided, simple but well-made, and answered it. Ha-Yun stood there, also cleaned up and wearing new clothes. But she still looked like herself. Still had that same careful expression. May I come in? She asked. He stepped aside. She entered and looked around the room, nervous in a way he'd never seen her. You lied to me, Taeyang said quietly. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything. That's the same thing. Is it? She turned to face him. If I had told you who I was, would you have helped me? I don't know, maybe. Exactly. You would have wondered about my motives. You would have treated me differently. Everyone treats me differently when they know who I am. They want favors or money or connections. They see the chairwoman, not the person. So you let me think you were just some random traveler in trouble. Yes, and for the first time in longer than I can remember. Someone treated me like a normal being. You gave me food without expecting anything. You risked your life without asking for payment. You were just kind, because that's who you are. Taeyang sat on the edge of the bed, trying to organize his thoughts. What exactly is the Celestial Consortium? Ha-Yun sat beside him, keeping a respectful distance. It's a corporate entity. We own mining operations, shipping companies, manufacturing facilities across hundreds of systems. We employ millions of beings and control resources worth, well, more money than you can probably imagine. And you run all of it. I'm the chairwoman, yes. I inherited it from my family and spent the last century building it into what it is today. A century. You're over 100 years old. I'm 243, actually. Vellani live a long time. Taeyang processed this. The woman he'd been protecting, who had seemed so vulnerable, was actually powerful enough to buy and sell entire planets. It was absurd. Why were those mercenaries hunting you? He asked. Business rivals. They sabotaged my ship during a secret negotiation trip. They hoped to either kill me or hold me for ransom. When I escaped, they hired hunters to find me before I could reach safety and expose them. And you crashed on Frontier Station Helios. Worst luck of my life. Or maybe the best. She looked at him. I learned something important there. I've been so focused on building my empire that I forgot why I started it in the first place. When I was young, I wanted to help people, to create opportunities and make lives better. But somewhere along the way, it became just about money and power. What changed your mind? You did. You showed me what real kindness looks like. You didn't help me because you wanted something. You helped because it was right. That's rare, Taeyang, especially in the circles I move in. There was a long silence. Taeyang didn't know what to say. Part of him was angry that she'd hidden the truth, but another part understood why she did it. What happens now? He finally asked. Now, I want to reward you. You saved my life. Name your price. Anything you want. I don't want your money. Everyone wants money, not me. He stood and walked to the window, looking out at the massive station. I just want to go home. Back to my workshop. Back to my normal life. I can arrange that. But first, let me give you something. Enough credits to pay off any debts, to buy better equipment, to live comfortably. You've earned it. Taeyang thought about his small apartment, his struggling repair shop, the bills he could barely pay. It would be easy to say yes, but something felt wrong about taking payment for helping someone in need. How about this? He said slowly. Pay off my station debts. That's all I need. Ha-Yun stared at him. That's maybe a few thousand credits. I'm offering you millions. I don't need millions. I need to not worry about debt collectors. That's enough. Taeyang, do you understand what you're turning down? I could make you rich. You'd never have to work again. But then what would I do? I like fixing things. I like helping people. Money doesn't change that. She laughed, but there were tears in her eyes. You're impossible. Do you know that? Completely impossible. So I've been told. Ha-Yun wiped her eyes. All right. I'll pay your debts. But I want to make you another offer. Not a payment, but a proposal. What kind of proposal? Work with me. Not for me, with me. I want to start a new division of the consortium. Something focused on helping frontier communities. Building infrastructure, providing resources, training local workers. Places like Frontier Station Helios that the galaxy has forgotten. I want you to lead it. Taeyang turned to look at her. Me? I'm just a mechanic. You're a problem solver. You see what needs to be done, and you do it with whatever resources you have. That's exactly what these communities need. Not charity from distant corporations, but someone who understands their struggles and can help them build better lives. I don't know anything about running a corporation. You'll learn. I'll provide advisors and support. But the vision, the direction that would come from you, from your understanding of what real people need, it was overwhelming. Taeyang had never imagined anything like this. Running a division of a galactic corporation? Leading humanitarian efforts across multiple systems. It seemed impossible. But then he thought about Frontier Station Helios, about all the people like him struggling to survive in forgotten corners of space, about the difference that resources and support could make in their lives. I need time to think about it, he said. Of course. Take all the time you need. Ha-Yun stood. But know this, you changed my life, Taeyang. You reminded me what's important. The least I can do is give you the opportunity to change other lives too. She walked to the door, then paused. Also, there's going to be a press conference tomorrow. The media wants to know how I survived and who helped me. I'll mention you, if that's all right. Do you have to? People deserve to know. You're a hero. I'm not a hero. I just did what anyone should do. Ha-Yun smiled. That's exactly why you're a hero. Because 6 months later, Taeyang stood on the observation deck of a newly built orbital station above a planet called New Haven. Below him, the surface showed signs of recent construction. Prefabricated buildings dotted the landscape, connected by fresh roads. Solar panels caught the sunlight, and water processors hummed in the valleys. It had been empty wasteland when he arrived 3 months ago. Now it was becoming a home for thousands of refugees from failed colonies. The medical center will be operational next week, said Jiwoo, his assistant. She was a young human engineer who had volunteered for the Frontier Development Initiative. And the school is already teaching its first classes. Good. What about the farming zones? Ahead of schedule. The Volani agricultural specialists finished the soil treatment yesterday. They say crops should be growing within a month. Taeyang nodded, making notes on his datapad. The Frontier Development Initiative had grown faster than he'd imagined possible. What started as Ha-Yun's proposal had become a galaxy-wide operation. They had teams on 15 worlds now, building infrastructure and training local workers. And it was all because of one simple act of kindness on a forgotten mining station. The press conference had been overwhelming. Media from across the galaxy wanted to know about the human who saved Chairwoman Park. The story spread quickly. A simple mechanic who helped a stranger without knowing who she was, risking everything for nothing in return. Some called it stupid. Others called it noble. But everyone was talking about it. What surprised Taeyang most was the response from other humans. Messages flooded in from Earth and human colonies, all saying the same thing. They wanted to help too. Engineers, doctors, teachers, farmers, thousands of humans volunteered to join the initiative. We want to show the galaxy what humanity stands for, one message said. Not weapons or conquest, but building and helping. Ha-Yun had provided the funding and resources. Taeyang provided the vision and leadership. Together, they built something that was changing lives across the frontier. His communicator chimed. It was Ha-Yun, calling from the consortium headquarters 3 systems away. How's New Haven? She asked. Coming together nicely. We should be ready to accept the first settlers by next month. Excellent. I have news. The Galactic Council wants to meet with you. Taeyang felt his stomach drop. The Galactic Council was the closest thing the galaxy had to a government, representing the major species and empires. Why do they want to meet with me? Because of what you're doing. The initiative has helped more frontier communities in 6 months than the Council has in decades. They're embarrassed, honestly. And they're curious about humanity. What do I say to them? The truth. That's all you ever need to say. The meeting was held on Meridian Cross in a chamber designed for diplomatic gatherings. Taeyang wore his best clothes, though they felt uncomfortable compared to his work gear. He entered a room filled with representatives from dozens of species, all of them watching him with varying degrees of curiosity and skepticism. The council speaker was an ancient being from a species Taeyang didn't recognize. She spoke in a voice that sounded like wind chimes. Human Taeyang, we've been observing your initiative. You claim to help worlds without seeking profit or political advantage. This is unusual. It's just the right thing to do, Taeyang said simply. But why? Your species is young and relatively poor. You have limited resources. Why spend them on strangers? Taeyang thought about how to explain it. About his mother's lessons, about seeing Ha-Yun collapsed in the storm, about the freighter they'd saved, about all the small moments that led to this one. Because we know what it's like to struggle, he finally said. Humans have always been the newcomers, the outsiders. We've had to fight for every bit of success. So when we see others struggling, we remember. We know how much a little help can mean. And we know that making the galaxy better for others makes it better for us too. The council members murmured among themselves. The speaker leaned forward. You speak of collective benefit. But individual beings rarely think beyond their own interests. Maybe that's true for some species. But humans, we're pack animals. We evolve surviving by working together. Alone, we're weak. Together, we're strong. That's in our nature. Another council member spoke up, a tall being with blue skin. We've received reports from worlds your initiative has helped. They speak highly of human workers. They say humans solve problems in creative ways, using limited resources. They say humans never give up, even when situations seem hopeless. That's true, Taeyang admitted. We're stubborn, and we've learned to make do with what we have. When you're the newest species in the galaxy, you don't get the best equipment or the most resources. You learn to work with what's available. The speaker was silent for a long moment. Then she said something that shocked Taeyang. The council has decided to sponsor humanity's application for full membership. Usually this takes centuries. But your actions, and those of your fellow humans in the initiative, have demonstrated that humanity has something valuable to contribute to the galactic community. Thank you. But I'm just one person. I don't represent all of humanity. On the contrary, we've studied your species since this began. What you did helping Chairwoman Park without knowing who she was, that's not unusual for humans. We found dozens of similar stories. Humans helping others, often a personal cost, simply because it's right. This is a rare trait in the galaxy. Most species only achieve it after millions of years of evolution. Humans have it now. Taeyang left the meeting feeling overwhelmed. Full membership in the Galactic Council would change everything for humanity. Access to better technology, trade agreements, protection under galactic law. All because he'd helped someone in a dust storm. He found Haiyun waiting for him outside the chamber. She smiled when she saw him. How did it go? They're sponsoring Earth's Council membership. I heard. Congratulations. You just changed the course of human history. I didn't do anything special. That's what makes it special. She linked her arm through his. Come on. I want to show you something. She led him to another observation deck, one overlooking the massive station. Ships of all sizes moved through the space around it, a constant flow of trade and travel. Look at all of this, Haiyun said. Millions of beings living and working together. Different species, different cultures, all sharing this space. It's beautiful, but it's also fragile. Cooperation like this doesn't happen naturally. It requires trust. What's your point? My point is that trust has to be earned. And humanity is earning it, one helpful action at a time. You started something, Taeyang. Other humans are following your example. They're spreading across the galaxy, not as conquerors or exploiters, but as builders and helpers. You're changing how the galaxy sees your species. I just wanted to help you. I know. And that's why it matters. She turned to face him. I've been thinking about what you said, about how humans are pack animals who survive by working together. I think that's exactly what the galaxy needs right now. We've become too individualistic, too focused on profit and power. Humans are reminding us of something we'd forgotten, that we're stronger together. Taeyang looked out at the ships and the stars beyond. 6 months ago, he'd been a struggling mechanic on a forgotten station. Now he was meeting with the Galactic Council and helping to reshape humanity's future. But in some ways, Nothing had changed. He was still the same person who couldn't walk past someone in need. Still the same person who believed in helping others, even when it was hard. What's next for the initiative? Hayun asked. There are 12 more worlds that requested our help. Small colonies struggling with failed infrastructure. I want to send teams to all of them. You'll need more resources. I know. Can the consortium? Already approved. I'm doubling your budget. Taeyang smiled. Thank you. Thank you, Taeyang. For everything. For saving my life, for showing me what really matters, for being exactly who you are. They stood together on the observation deck, watching the flow of ships. Somewhere out there, human volunteers were helping rebuild a water treatment plant. Others were teaching classes on agricultural techniques. Still others were repairing damaged stations and building new homes for refugees. All of them following the example of one mechanic who'd helped a stranger in a storm. A message came through on Taeyang's communicator. It was from Ji Woo on New Haven. The first settlers had arrived early and were already moving into the new buildings. Children were laughing in the playground they built. Families were starting to make the place their home. Look at this, Taeyang showed Hayun the video. She watched the happy faces and smiled. That's what real wealth looks like. Not money or power, but lives changed for the better. My mother would have liked that saying. She raised a good son. Years later, when historians studied this period, they would point to Taeyang's actions as a turning point for humanity. The moment when the galaxy stopped seeing them as naive newcomers and started seeing them as valuable partners. But Taeyang never thought of himself as special. He was just a mechanic who fixed things. Sometimes those things were machines. Sometimes they were problems.